are both a theological and a heart problem. Many in the American church have replaced worship of God with idolatrous pursuits of wealth and power at the cost of our integrity. White evangelicals have become known for ethnocentrism and for stoking fear of those who are different from them. The American church has developed a reputation for being driven by control, comfort, and security, as opposed to being known by love for one another, as Jesus instructed. John chapter 13, verse 35. Our political motivations and nationalistic tendencies have created a syncretism that blurs the lines between true discipleship and mere partisanship. As a result, many have come to see the American Christian emphasis on family values as nothing more than words, especially when our leaders and churches flagrantly fail to practice what they preach. To be clear, however, this is not another book about Donald Trump, nor is it about Jerry Falwell Jr., Ravi Zacharias, Mark Driscoll, or others on a long list of high-profile Christians whose abusive leadership or hypocrisy has been exposed in recent years. It's also not the story of how we got into this mess. In their books that have become bestsellers, historians such as Jamar Tisby and Kristen Kobes-Dumais have already carefully documented the history of how American Christianity, and particularly white evangelicalism, has been complicit with racism, sexism, and nationalism, essentially white patriarchy masquerading as family values. Instead, this audiobook seeks to answer questions such as, where do we go from here? Can and should the American church be saved? Can American evangelicals revive our public witness, and how? While we're uninterested in simply resuscitating a damaged religious brand, we believe, because we have seen it, that God is still at work in the American church, and we want to be a part of restoring her gospel witness. To do so, we're going to need to learn to listen to voices that have historically been at the margins of American Christianity. Perception and reality. Many within our evangelical world consider an increasingly negative reputation among those outside the church as proof that we are doing something right, earning the world's scorn that Jesus promised his followers, John chapter 15 verse 18 and 1 John chapter 3 verse 13. Though there is a real sense in which the church should not be driven by popular opinion, we are also called to earn the respect of those who may never embrace our convictions. Moreover, they should be unable to ignore our good deeds, which ultimately glorify God, Matthew chapter 5 verse 16 and 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 12. If reputation is indeed part of gospel witness, our witness is in tatters. When the people of Israel claimed to bear God's name while simultaneously pursuing idols, God warned through the prophet Ezekiel, "You have profaned my holy name." Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 20. This is a charge that should chasten us. The reality is that evangelicals are most often despised, not because we are Christians, but because of distinctly unchristian attitudes and behaviors. As Russell Moore notes, the culture often does not reject us because they don't believe the church's doctrinal and moral teachings, but because they have evidence that the church doesn't believe its own doctrinal and moral teachings. If we are actually committed to the work of God's kingdom, the commissions of Christ, the example of the New Testament church, and a biblical social ethic, we should be driven to care deeply for how others perceive our attitudes and actions. We should be known for our love, compassion, humility, and countercultural blessing of our opponents, earning worldly scorn only for doing what is right, never for what is wrong. 1 Peter chapter 3 verses 8 through 9 and verses 16 through 17. When we preach an anemic gospel while blatantly dismissing parts of the biblical witness that do not line up with our personal or partisan interests, we don't just appear to lack self-awareness, but God's name is blasphemed among those outside our faith. Romans chapter 2 verse 24. We are to do what the apostles and the ancient church modeled. Be wise in the ways you act toward outsiders. Make the most of every opportunity. Colossians chapter 4 verse 5. We are also to live